And now the truth comes out, and what happens? Now we're told we're going to have a public inquiry. So please don't say anything in case you prejudice the public inquiry. The Home Secretary, the Prime Minister, Liverpool police are trying to run away from this, and it's just not good enough. This is the most appalling cover-up I think I've ever seen.
Keir Starmer has been caught red-handed in what Nigel Farage is calling a blatant cover-up of the secret of Southport child murders.
So Sir Keir Starmer addressed the nation, being blasted by Nigel Farage for a political cover-up, the biggest political cover-up, Nigel Farage said, of his entire career. In fact, he's given the new nickname, Cover-Up Keir. Sir Keir Starmer came out swinging this morning. Tell us how first the Prime Minister responded.
Nigel Farage exposes Starmer's shameful behaviour over the Southport case, claiming the British public was deliberately kept in the dark.
Let's just state, Rod, what the truth is. You're absolutely right. I've said it on Twitter all day. The Prime Minister this morning lied to this nation. I think he's lied many times, but this was barefaced, shameless, and in our face.
Starmer's hypocrisy in handling the Southport killings is sparking a furious backlash.
What's your reaction to the news of this public inquiry tonight from the Home Secretary into the Southport murders?
24 hours after the triple murder, when online speculation was going absolutely crazy as to the identity of this individual and what his motivations might be, I posted a video in which I asked the question, was this man known to the authorities?
The Southport public inquiry has rocked the nation. Nigel Farage is calling it for what it is, a shameful cover-up riddled with state failures and political manoeuvring.
Why are you not telling us the truth? And for that, I was vilified. From senior newspaper publications, broadcasters, politicians, just for asking for the truth. I was apparently somebody who was encouraging rioting. The opposite was the case. The British public can deal with the truth. It's when there's a vacuum that you get a difficult situation.
Farage just exposed what could be the ultimate betrayal of the British public.
So what happened here was the Liverpool police covered up the truth. The Home Secretary covered up the truth. The Prime Minister covered up the truth. And we were told in the House of Commons we weren't even allowed to ask a question about this man's identity, almost as if parliamentary privilege.
Nigel Farage was never one to hold back and has accused Starmer of not just incompetence but outright breach of the nation's trust.
But just very briefly, weren't they trying to protect the legal process by doing that? They wanted to make sure they got to a point where they could then put all out for court to hear.
No. And this is the point that Lord Carlisle made. Knowing the truth about the identity of who has committed this is not the same as discussing the details of the accusations. Very, very different things. And in the past, we've always had this information.
This is a classic Starmer move, hiding behind convoluted legal jargon to protect his image while throwing transparency under the bus. It's not about justice or due process, it's about shielding himself from the backlash that he knew was brewing.
And what happens? We get the Prime Minister, the Home Secretary, screaming at the far right, daring not to admit to the public that actually this is a terrorist, motivated, he's watching extreme jihadi videos, and we've been denied the truth. And now the truth comes out, and what happens? Now we're told we're going to have a public inquiry. So please don't say anything in case you prejudice the public inquiry.
At the heart of this controversy lies a critical question. Who is Starmer really protecting? Because it certainly doesn't seem to be the people of the UK. The Southport case is a prime example of the failure of the Labour government. When the government can't even act on clear warnings about someone like Ruda Kubana, what hope is there for tackling everyday crime? The same shambolic system that ignored red flags is the one that leaves common people to fend for themselves against rising violence and lawlessness.
The Prime Minister, Liverpool police are trying to run away from this, and it's just not good enough. This is the most appalling cover-up I think I've ever seen.
OK. Nigel Farage, I must go to why you are where you are in Washington, D.C., of course. Where you watched the inauguration, were you in the room? Were you in the rotunda?
Southport is a name that will forever haunt the nation. 3 innocent young girls, Bibi, Elsie, and Alice, were brutally murdered in what can only be described as an act of sheer evil. The entire country was plunged into grief, but now the spotlight isn't just on the horrific act itself. It's on the institutions that failed to protect these children, and on the man who promised justice but delivered yet another round of empty words, Prime Minister Keir Starmer.
In the wake of the horrific murder of those 3 girls in Southport in July of this year, I asked some questions saying, please tell us the truth. Stop the online speculation. Well, it's taken a long time to find out more about the individual. He's now been charged, believe it or not, under the Biological Weapons Act because the police have found ricin in his home. He's been charged under the Terrorism Act, alleged to have downloaded Al-Qaeda terrorist materials.
Nigel Farage has long been the voice cutting through the fog of lies spun by the Labour government, and the Southport killings are no exception. For years, he's warned us about the deceit and cover-ups that have become second nature to the likes of Keir Starmer and his party. Farage has consistently championed transparency and held those in power accountable, refusing to let the truth be buried under layers of political spin.
But the murder of the girls and the serious injury of the others, that is still being treated as a non-terror incident because they don't know what the motives were. We've also been told this afternoon there are other facts that we don't yet know because the Crown Prosecution Service say they will come out in good time in court and are not to be discussed now. So that's all right then. That all makes sense to you, doesn't it?
When it comes to the Southport incident, his unrelenting criticism of Labour's attempt to hide the chilling realities of the case shows just how vital his voice is in exposing the establishment's failures. While Starmer divers and dodges, Farage stands firm, reminding the public that they deserve leaders who serve the people, not their own interests.
I'll take you back to July. You were accused of stirring up online conspiracy theories. You were called Tommy Robinson in a suit over the comments that you made. You posted a video on X before the riots broke out questioning the accuracy of the police's assessment that that knife attack was not terror-related. Now, treat me as an idiot. You've been proven to be absolutely right. I've got a theory which you might laugh out of town.
Starmer's refusal to fully disclose critical details surrounding the case, coupled with his flimsy justifications about protecting the trial, has only fueled suspicions of a deeper, darker agenda. Farage, with his characteristic bluntness, called out Starmer's hypocrisy, questioning why the British public is being kept in the dark about such a high-stakes matter. The reality is that Starmer's entire tenure is built on lies and cover-ups.
If our Prime Minister at that moment stood up, and we understand that there's certain stuff legally that he couldn't have said, but had been a little bit more forthcoming, that it was a terrorist attack, it was under control, all the things that have been said in other situations before, presumably the vacuum of discontent that started online wouldn't have spread onto the streets, whereupon he could arrest and jail everybody within 24 hours and look strong. Do we not believe that his dishonesty at that moment was actually part of the reason?
Is it fair for a leader, someone entrusted with the nation's future, to run away from reality and hide behind a wall of deception? Leadership demands courage, honesty, and facing the truth head-on, no matter how uncomfortable it may be. But Keir Starmer has chosen the coward's path, spinning tales to shield himself from answerability. Deception doesn't protect the people, it only protects those clinging to power. By running from reality, Starmer is shattering the very principles of democracy, leaving the public to clean up the mess his lies create. If this is his idea of leadership, it's no wonder trust in him is crumbling.
Would she then put down to the far right, or have I missed the point?
Yes, I get it completely. I totally agree. And that's what I was saying. I said in that video, was this man known to the authorities? Now, I had a fair inkling at the time that he was, because I'd been given some fairly good information from Southport. Was he known to the authorities? Tell us the truth. Why are we not being told the truth?
The same old shambolic cycle. A tragedy unfolds, public outrage erupts, and the government scrambles to announce yet another inquiry. Months later comes a watered-down report filled with half-truths and deceptive details. The British people deserve better. They deserve to know if political correctness has once again been placed above their safety.
Governments should stop hiding behind saying, we can't say anything because someone's been arrested and it would be contempt of court. Just telling us the truth about who that person was would not have in any way influenced or changed a trial that might happen. And even today, the Prime Minister couldn't come clean. He continued with the insistence that we deserve to know nothing. He couldn't even himself say it was a terror attack. Well, let's have a think about this, shall we?
The public's faith in the system has already been shattered, and Farage's accusations of the worst cover-up turned out to be true. It is no surprise that Starmer's political career is only hanging by a thread. And let's face it, Nigel Farage is the kind of politician who knows how to keep the pressure on.
Al-Qaeda training manuals, chemical weapons. I mean, what more do you need, to understand that this guy was a terrorist? He was motivated by a vile ideology, and he'd been thinking this way and behaving this way for some time, indeed, even whilst he was at school.
There was a father that prevented him from going back to his old school a week before. There's hypocrisy in Starmer's words, though, massive hypocrisy, because as you quite rightly say,
it was previously revealed that Axel Ruda-Kubana had been referred to prevent the government's counter-terrorism program on 3 separate occasions. One referral was prompted by alarming concerns about Ruda-Kubana's potential fascination with a school massacre involving the killing of children. Yet still, nothing was done. Were they just waiting for killing and riots to erupt?
Today he made this big thing about, I didn't want to say anything at the time, for fear of prejudicing a trial. Well, surely by calling everybody who... And by the way, I don't condone the far-right riots any more than you do, but that vacuum was, I think, created by his words. By surely coming out and saying that everybody that took to the streets was a far-right thug, would it not be fair to say our Prime Minister prejudiced those people's trials, and they could be in prison now when it was a terrorist attack?
Starmer's shameful and completely inexcusable lies are causing an uproar in the UK. This is pure Starmerism at its worst, double standards and hypocrisy at its core. The British public is right to demand accountability in politics, and it's no surprise they feel deeply humiliated in the name of justice and free speech.
He effectively said, I'd have never been Yes, I knew about the ricin and the Al-Qaeda manuals, which he finally conceded was probably something to do with terrorism. He said, but if I'd have affected the trial, prejudiced the trial of this man, the public would never have forgiven me.
Injustice is just one part. Let's not forget that this Taylor Swift-themed attack on July 29th adds to the growing concerns about the rise in extremism and knife-related crimes in the UK. Justice in these cases seems far from certain, especially with Starmer's idiotic handling of these critical matters.
So what's he saying? This is what he's saying is that if the public know the charges that a defendant is accused of when he goes into court, that will prejudice his or her case. That's what he's saying. That we mustn't know charges against defendants because they can prejudice a trial. The utter absurdity of that is off the scale.
Keir Starmer is treating us like children. His approach to the Southport killings makes it seem like he believes the British public can't see through his facade. This case is a direct slap in the face to every hard-working Briton who expects honesty and liability from their leaders. If Keir Starmer can lie so effortlessly about something as serious as the Southport killings, what else is being hidden? What happens when justice becomes a pawn in the political game? It sets a dangerous precedent where the truth is sacrificed and ordinary people are left to wonder if their safety, their rights, and their voices even matter. It's about trust that Starmer has crushed, leaving the people of the UK to pay the price for his reckless dishonesty.
He's lying, Kevin, and he's lied throughout this whole case. And I never used to think this, but I genuinely believe that there will be a real outpouring of anger and possibly violence as a consequence of the way in which we are continually lied to by people like Starmer and by the Merseyside police, as it happens, about what is happening in our country and what the cause of it is.
Starmer's patronising explanations, riddled with contradictions and half-truths, insult the IQ of every voter who values honesty. The idea that withholding the truth somehow protects justice is laughable. Justice thrives on transparency, not secrecy. Yet here he is, spinning tales like we can't think for ourselves. It's condescending, it's insulting, and it's exactly why people are fed up with Labour's elitist arrogance.
There is us left alone being lied to and dissembled to by people who wish to protect their idiotic agendas. Now, he didn't only talk about the court case. He also said, so Keir Starmer was given the chance to sort of look through and pick out what the common determining factors are for these sorts of attacks, such as a hideous one in Southport, where 3 little girls were murdered. And he said it was young men alone in their bedrooms.
Keir Starmer's constant lies and idiotic agendas are exactly why the people of the UK are so frustrated. From dodging questions on Southport to pushing policies that do more harm than good, he's proven time and again that he's out of touch with the real struggles of ordinary Brits. His obsession with political games and covering his tracks has left the public frustrated and disillusioned. Instead of offering solutions, Starmer feeds us more excuses and empty rhetoric, thinking we won't notice. But we do. The people are tired of being treated like pawns ready to be sacrificed anytime, and it's only adding to the growing annoyance across the nation.
It's them. Is it something about their bedrooms then that is driving these kids, these young men, to murder? Is it that we don't have wallpaper anymore? You know, what is it exactly? What is this cause that he thinks? And he's looked back through all these atrocities which have happened. People stabbed on Westminster Bridge, Manchester Arena blown up.
Is a Prime Minister really allowed to stand before the nation and shamelessly lie, claiming he knew the truth but hid it for the so-called sake of good? What good exactly was he talking about? Because from where we're standing, all we see is a man desperately trying to justify his own failures. Is Keir Starmer delusional enough to think the British people would buy such an absurd excuse? Hiding the truth about Southport wasn't for the good, it was for his own political survival. By pretending he was protecting justice, he's only exposed how deeply disconnected he is from reality. The people deserve honesty and leadership, not these pathetic, self-serving justifications that insult the entire system.
Let's just state, Rod, what the truth is. You're absolutely right. I've said it on Twitter all day. The Prime Minister this morning lied to this nation. I think he's lied many times, but this was a barefaced, shameless and in our face. He said that yes, he knew about the ricin and the Al-Qaeda manual from day one when Axel Rudakabana's house was searched. He knew about it, but chose not to reveal it because he said to reveal that would have prejudiced the trial. No.
The manual was found at his home just days after the attack, but they didn't charge him with a terror offence for another 3 months. How is this not a cover-up? Even when Sky News' Beth Rigby pressed Starmer about why he withheld information, he tried to justify it by saying he knew details, but it wouldn't have been right to disclose them. What a load of nonsense. Of course, he didn't want to reveal the truth. It's all about protecting his own agenda. The public can see through this. It's clear. Starmer's hiding the truth to avoid the fallout from his own failures, especially when considering the severity of the Southport child murders and the ongoing UK criminal court updates.
Keir Starmer addressed the nation this morning, saying the UK faces a new terrorism threat following the guilty plea of Axel Rudakabana, and also denied claims of a cover-up. Meanwhile, in the last hour, the Home Secretary Yvette Cooper addressed the Commons, saying that action taken against Axel Rudakabana was far too weak, adding the Southport attack was one of the most barbaric crimes, as she announced a public inquiry.
Keir Starmer's actions surrounding the Southport attack are nothing short of shameless. While he tried to claim the attack was clearly intended to terrorize, the official line is that it wasn't a terror attack because the police couldn't figure out the killer's motive. So apparently, without a motive, it's not terrorism. How conveniently he wanted to escape from taking the responsibility.
So Sir Keir Starmer addressed the nation, being blasted by Nigel Farage for a political cover-up, the biggest political cover-up, Nigel Farage said, of his entire career. In fact, he's given the new nickname, Cover-Up Keir. Sir Keir Starmer came out swinging this morning. Tell us how first the Prime Minister responded.
Well, there had always been, Martin, a real suspicion that the authorities were not revealing key facts regarding the background of Axel Rudakabana. The Prime Minister himself in Downing Street in that news conference this morning confirmed that yes, that was true, that he knew very early on.
Axel Rudakabana even admitted to having a training manual for terrorists, but since they couldn't connect him to a clear motive, it's not officially terrorism, even though there were clear signs that this could be linked to a broader UK knife attack case. No wonder the public's suspicious. It looks like a classic cover-up, all to protect the failure of the government's Prevent scheme. Yvette Cooper herself admits Rudakabana should have been flagged as a threat, especially since he was reported 3 times.
That ricin had been discovered in Rudakabana's home address in Lancashire. Also that a PDF linked to Al-Qaeda documents had been found at his home address as well. He had also known about these referrals to the Prevent Counter-Extremism programme.
The irony is that Starmer himself admitted to knowing about the ricin and Al-Qaeda manuals tied to the case, both undeniable markers of terrorism. Yet, in the same breath, Starmer deflected responsibility by insinuating that informing the public would somehow jeopardize the trial's integrity. It was a blatant attempt to suppress public awareness and sidestep the outrage that would inevitably follow.
But he said the reason that the public were not told about this is because of the overriding need to ensure that the forthcoming trial was not prejudiced, that the public would not forgive him or indeed the authorities for revealing information that may result in the collapse of a trial. That was his justification.
Are we really supposed to believe that withholding crucial information about such a serious case is somehow in the name of justice? Starmer's argument reeks of desperation, as if he's clutching at straws to avoid admitting the real reasons behind this secrecy. Transparency and accountability are cornerstones of any functioning democracy, yet Starmer seems more concerned with protecting his political image than the truth. The absurdity of it all is staggering, leaving many wondering just how much more he's hiding.
The Prime Minister today admitted he knew at the beginning it was a choice to keep it quiet, and the questions being asked, did that choice further add tensions which exacerbated these riots?
Well, we in the country have a massive problem because we have a Prime Minister and we can't trust a word he says. And we have a Prime Minister and we can't trust a word he says because he is now saying, oh, look, I may have lied to you, but I did it for your own good. You know, I did it for a good reason. It's complete tosh. And I love the way that non-lawyers are engaging with this.
By silencing the details and twisting the narrative, Starmer is not only undermining justice, but insulting the very people he's supposed to represent. His excuses don't just fail to hold water, they expose the cracks in his credibility for everyone to see. So, where does this leave us? Will Starmer manage to weather the storm, or will Farage's relentless pursuit of the truth finally expose the rupture in his leadership? The families of victims in the Southport case deserve justice, and their victim impact statements should be heard. Yet here we are, left in the dark as Starmer withholds crucial information. The public is demanding answers, and rightly so. This is a mess that Starmer needs to own, not cover up. If you believe in the truth and want to help spread it far and wide, don't forget to like and subscribe for more eye-opening content. Together, we can hold those in power accountable.